Tonight, you cannot make this up. The Donald versus the Pope. And believe it or not, this time, the pontiff started it. But of course, Trump having the last word. He doesn't have kind words for that matter when it comes to the Holy Father. Then the political scuffle over replacing Justice Scalia. When will the president pick a nominee? And will he pick a moderate who might be easier to get through, or a liberal who will set up even a bigger fight? Also, it's no secret that Hillary Clinton is having trouble attracting the female vote. We're going to show you how she's trying to turn that around. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we begin this evening with, yes, Donald battling the Pope. Now, it all started when the pontiff was asked about Donald Trump and his hard line when it came to immigration, and the Pope had this to say.
A person who thinks only about building walls, wherever they may be located, and not building bridges is not a Christian. This is not in the gospel.
Now, and this may surprise you, Donald Trump didn't just take that lying down. He had to blast back, regardless that it was about the Pope.
For a religious leader to question a person's faith is disgraceful. I'm proud to be a Christian, and as president, I will not allow Christianity to be consistently attacked and weakened, unlike what is happening now with our current president.
Then a few minutes later, it gets from the surreal to the bizarre. Jeb Bush, who's been a piñata for Donald Trump, was asked about Trump and the Pope, and he gave this meandering answer.
Wrong to question his Christianity?
I don't question anybody's Christianity because I honestly believe that that's a relationship that you have with your Creator, and it only enables bad behavior when someone from the outside of our country talks about Donald Trump.
Governor, do you agree with this statement that what Pope Francis said was a person who thinks only about building walls, wherever they may be, and not building bridges is not Christian? Do you agree with that?
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that answer means. Now, on that note, let's bring in our panel. Jeannie Zaino, professor of political science at Iona College and a professor of campaign management at NYU. Dominic Carter, of course, political journalist and author. Jessica Proud, Republican strategist and PR expert with the November team. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. I don't know, Jeannie, what was more bizarre. That you have the Pope picking a fight with Trump really, for the first time reading anything, forget about when he was gutting in, reading a prepared statement, and Jeb Bush seemingly defending Trump the same day that Trump said, I think it's time that Bush throw in the towel and quit and run back to mommy. Jeb Bush is taking up for Donald Trump, from the surreal to the bizarre.
It truly is. And I still can't, when I got the alert that the Pope had kind of chastised Donald Trump and taken him out, and then Donald Trump responding, and as you mentioned, reading, something he never does. Of course, he's got to be very careful treading on this issue, particularly as they head into South Carolina on Saturday. And then Jeb Bush, I think, to me, was just, obviously we know that he's had trouble all along, but who is advising Jeb Bush? He absolutely cannot get his foot out of his mouth. This was a perfect time for him to come back and hit Donald Trump hard, and he absolutely defended him, or if you can say that, it was kind of a muddled defense, if you will.
And I can't believe I'm about to say this, Dom, but
Donald.
I look like Donald?
Well, with Dominic, I got to check the speaking engagements, maybe it'll work. Nice comb over. No, but so the point that I had to you is, was Trump kind of a little right here on this one?
I don't know if he's right, but I know that Trump is saying, thank you, God, 48 hours before the primary, and this is a grand slam for him. I finally figured out the math. It's a grand slam. I'm going to tell you right now. He doesn't care who he's picking a fight with as long as he can dominate the news cycle. Who's the only person we're talking about? Are we discussing right now any other Republican or any other Democrat? Jeb Bush, in fairness to him, let's cut him a break, Richard, seriously. Some of these candidates are not used to being on the stump for 16 hours a day. And you can be exhausted. Having been a journalist covering that, you can be exhausted I'm sure Jessica will back me up, hopefully, on that one in terms of the exhaustion level. But this is a grand slam for Trump because this Pope is beloved, but there are those that believe politically he's meddling in some issues that he should not be dealing
And
with.
geographically, Jessica, in the South, sure, there's a big Christian population, but for folks who don't know the distinction, there's Christian and there's Catholic. And the
Exactly.
role of the Pope isn't always embraced when you go south of the Mason-Dixie line. That said, though, is it unseemly, calling, what do you call the Pope here?
Disgraceful.
Disgraceful?
I mean, just when you thought this election couldn't get any stranger, oh, now he's fighting with the Pope. I mean, who's next? God himself? Like, it's really just unfathomable on so many levels. But you're right. I don't think it's going to hurt him in South Carolina because it is such a small percentage of Catholics there. It could hurt him in Super Tuesday, which has a lot more states with a bigger Catholic population. This is his brand. It's his MO. I think his base expects that of him. They think he can do no wrong. But again, it does play into the fears about him and the concerns and cements that ceiling that he's had, that he hasn't been able to get past that 40%. You saw 2 polls come out yesterday that showed a head-to-head if it was just a two-way primary between Trump and Rubio and Trump and Cruz, and both Rubio and Cruz were beating him handily. So he's got to figure out, if he's in this for the long run, how he's going to get over that ceiling. And picking a fight with the Pope, I don't think is the smartest way.
It is amazing, Andrew, isn't it, that every week there's 2 to 3 news cycles you could never predict at the beginning of the week that Donald Trump seemingly is in the middle of, for good or for bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little disappointed in this one. I mean, I understand. I think it probably won't hurt him in the long run. And I think the Pope's public image, at least on the Republican side, or at least in the Fox News universe, has been somewhat softened considering his speech before Congress. And there were already some criticism of the Pope meddling in domestic affairs, but at the very least, he's a very nice old man. And you would think you would just want to be nice to the very nice old man who talks about God and religious teachings and things like that. It's disappointing. Trump has figured out how to play us, in a way that's disappointing for us. It's nothing you can't be surprised by anything anymore, but we're still, I think some of us are still waiting for the one thing when he goes too far.
Oh, please
and when
stop.
the worm turns.
What's left, Andrew?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm hoping it's still there.
I disagree a little bit that this isn't going to hurt Trump. The problem is, to win an election, you have to get voters. You have to increase your support, not decrease it. This is not just about Catholics who are listening to what Pope Francis has to say. This is about people on the Republican side who are saying, the Pope for many people is a world leader. Because you are criticized by a world leader, you respond by calling them disgraceful. That is not in many people's minds presidential, whether you're Catholic or not. And so it speaks to this narrative that Donald Trump has. He was going to stop swearing, apparently. He was going to stop this bombastic behavior. Why was he going to stop it, and why was he apologizing for it? Because he knows it doesn't look presidential. So I do think there's a cumulative effect here that starts to make it difficult to get over that 25-30%. And I think the polls, the Wall Street Journal poll and other polls, have shown he is dipping a little bit. His support is, he'll have his 25% plus, but I do think there's a cumulative effect here.
Just this week's news cycle, this couldn't have come at a better time, this story for him. If you think about it, I think he had a misstep with Cruz where he threatened to sue, and Cruz turned around and said, fine, bring it on. Sue me. I'll be happy to depose you, and look what we'll find out in a deposition, okay? Trump didn't really go anywhere with that one because, frankly, Trump did say those things on Meet the Press a few years back to the late Tim Russert, where he talked about being pro-choice across the board. Then Trump said that he lost hundreds of friends in the World Trade Center on 9/11. When asked to name one of them, he couldn't name one of them, right? I mean, those kind of things have crippled candidates just by themselves. Now, no one's going to talk about that. They're going to talk about Trump versus the Pope,
But there's only so many fronts in which you can fight a war,
How long
and
have we
that
been
is
saying
part
that,
of
Jeannie?
it. But it is. We say it because it's true.
I know that, but
And
he made fun of this.
took the bait.
He made fun of what he called the
But
Jews
at
good
one
negotiators. He made fun of. I mean, look what he's done to Latinos. What has he said about the Arabic
one time,
population?
Richard, at one time, as you mentioned, in a week, he had a horrible debate, and you go right down the list. I just don't think fighting with the Pope helps him by any stretch of the imagination.
Look, politics is a game of addition, right? How do you get to the 50 plus 1?
Exactly.
And when you continue to alienate these certain groups, it does eventually add up. You know, will it have an immediate impact in South Carolina? I don't think so. I would be encouraged to at least see that there's movement there, but
you're not gonna hold
you know,
your
but
breath.
overall, I think that's absolutely
This
true.
guarantees his win in South Carolina. I understand the point that you're raising, but the name of the game is you have to get the nomination before you can look towards the general election. Donald Trump is thanking God tonight that the Pope picked the fight with him.
Can I ask the flip side question while we start? As the non-Christian at the table, is the Pope right? Do we think that it's not Christian to build a wall?
Well,
to
it's
keep people out?
fascinating from a Catholic perspective. The biggest headline of what the Pope had to say, to me, today wasn't about Donald Trump. He actually said, in speaking about the Zika virus, that those who will prevent a pregnancy, it is not evil incarnate. So the idea, if you parse the words, is birth control is okay in certain circumstances. And to me, the idea of a pope in my lifetime saying that is huge. But no one's hearing that because he waded in to what was going on when asked the question about Trump and the walls and everything else. I thought he overstepped it in terms of defining who is and isn't a Christian. But that said, you know, it's amazing some of the things at least that are being said. I don't know about being done, but at least being said by this pontiff. They give me the rap. All right. When we come back here, the story that we thought would have led the show, and that is, of course, in the aftermath of the passing of Justice Scalia, what happens next with the Supreme Court? President battling with the Republicans about replacing that justice, and we're going to get the inside scoop from a Washington Post reporter about what he's hearing on the ground, who might and when be named next.